Acharya ji, but I also see a paradox in how we live our life. We get born, we get inducted in the societal norms, situations. We start living our life, and for a large part of the life, not all of us have the benefit to be aware of how we are living our life. And then we get into actions which become like a compulsion, and we continue to do that. Few of us get the opportunity to drift away from this. So for a common man, firstly, how does he understand what is karma? What is right karma? What is karma? Is it only action or is it words, thoughts? So what is the algorithm for him to be aware?
It is not so difficult at all. While I fully concur with what you initially said, that given the way our society is, our families are, our education system is, we just keep drifting along. And yes, we do in that drift often take decisions that have very far-reaching effects, and obviously they are irreversible, and then one thing sits upon the other and they get multiplied, and so much happens that just captivates us. All that is all right, but the thing is, wisdom is so easily available at every point in life, especially in India. The question, what to do, what to choose, what's worth living for, has been at the heart of all spiritual pursuit. So it's not merely about Krishna. You go to any of the scriptures, you go to sages, saints, seers, and you will get the same idea. It's not difficult at all. So if a person comes and says that this book feels very, very new, it means that there has been a lot of misguidance. The fellow has either never willingly gone to the great books that are so ubiquitous, so easily available, or he has been willingly choosing the wrong kind of teachers. Maybe he has gone to books, but the wrong kind of books. So either of two cases has happened. Otherwise, it's not difficult. I mean, you don't have to know Sanskrit. You don't have to follow philosophy. Even if you can go to the couplets of the very common sages, even the folk songs, the regional folk songs, even they are imbued with wisdom. So how can somebody say that the concept of right action has totally eluded him? But it's happening. So while at one hand I express surprise and disappointment, on the other hand I see it happening. Obviously it's happening, which means that there is an abundance of the false kind of teaching. And that's dangerous.
Sure, and in the book it very clearly lays out how to choose the right action, will the right action give the right result, and lastly, action that reforms the actor. And across chapters, there is a lot of focus on why and what. But if somebody is in this vicious circle, he is in a loop. He's acting out of his condition, the results are wrong, he's again acting out of his condition. So it's a vicious circle for him. How does he come out of the whirlpool? What is that one thing that he could do or for himself to come out of this whirlpool?
You see, even if I tell you the way to get out of this room, that would only mean that you emerge intact out of this room, and the entire purpose of the spiritual demolition process has been defeated. Compared to what? How is a very mischievous question. What is there makes us look squarely at the actor. Who is the actor? What's his nature? Now you're looking at the actor. When you say, how does the actor reach a particular goal, as you said, emerge out of the situation, then we are not challenging the actor. We are letting the actor stay as she is, and we are guiding her to emerge out of her predicament, staying as she is. Now that's exactly what the actor wants, to not change. Therefore, all methods and all advices that focus on how to are not only bound to fail but actually deteriorate the situation. A while back we were talking of bad teaching. A lot of bad teaching comes from this point, how to be better, how to make the right decisions. 11 ways to choose in a tricky position. So, even if you have taught me how to choose, I as the misled one, I as the false one, have remained at my place. What's more, I now have 2 more tricks in my hands to continue with my mischief in an even more vicious way. Is that not so?
Yeah, I got the perspective. Yeah, indeed.
So the ego is not to be reformed or given methods and tricks. The ego is to be introduced to its own reality. The ego needs to look at itself in the mirror and see that it is needlessly both ugly and suffering.
And it takes a lot of courage as well.
It takes a lot of courage if we are accustomed to doing the things the other way. Otherwise, it's a fairly simple thing.
Yeah. And if we have a deep desire to let go of our suffering.
Great,
yeah.
Great. It depends on how dearly you firstly love yourself. If you really want to be free of suffering, then you will do what it takes. Else you will keep finding roundabout routes and such things.
Sure. And you also mentioned that right action is something which gives you joy and contentment. Now, like the ego is the false self, so what we continue to get misled again is that we consider the momentary gratification as joy and contentment. So as a seeker, somebody who is not aware, it's simple. And you also said one very profound thing, that if you don't know anything, then life is still easier. But if you know some bits of it, and the more you know, the more suffering you have. So what is the advice, or what do you guide people from?
First of all, what's false must be called out and kept aside. Joy, the way the word is currently being used, it's been falsely represented as some kind of a synonym of happiness, exaggerated happiness. Joy is not happiness at all. Joy is just freedom. So, in the name of joy, people continue with their false pursuit of fleeting freedom, of fleeting happiness. That doesn't take them anywhere. Joy is a negation of the kind of happiness that comes necessarily with sadness, of the kind of happiness that rides necessarily on tension. And that's the, unfortunately, only kind of happiness that most of us know. Happiness that's always feeling threatened, happiness that's always bordered by, shadowed by the prospect of misery, happiness that needs to be protected. And if we want to act a little spiritual, then we start calling this same petty happiness as joy. And that's what, unfortunately, teachers over the last few decades or in the last century have been teaching us. So the real meaning of Anand, joy, is lost upon us. And the repercussions are horrible. You look at the state of this planet, you look at the pandemic, you look at the mental disintegration of population, the neurosis, the very decline in humanness which is reflected in all kinds of atrocities today man is inflicting upon various life forms, the depletion of biodiversity, the hacking down of woods, forests, the rivers are gone, and having burnt the planet to ashes, we now want to colonize Mars. And all these kinds of stupidities, they are essentially because of false spirituality. In some sense, everybody is spiritual. It's just that most of us have a wrong spirituality, a wrong philosophy we are living by. And we need a course correction immediately.
Sure. I think one tip that you've given in the book is the right duty is to find a way to help others. And you gave Gandhiji's example of what the world needs. And would you just throw light on that? So the idea, one of the ideas of this session is that people take back something which they can apply in their lives, some words of wisdom or your energy. So what would you help them take back on this?
In context of helping others?
In context of doing one change in our own lives.
No, first of all, we have to realize what our life is like. I can't change something without firstly understanding its processes and its actuality. I want to change something about this ceiling fan. Can I do that firstly, without knowing a thing about what magnetism is? So first of all, I must know what this thing called my life is. We keep living without knowing a thing about life. We are blinded by names and identities. We keep saying, fine, so this is my house. And that becomes such a strong, not merely an identity, that becomes a thing taken for granted. But what exactly is a house? We never ask such simple questions to ourselves. What am I doing here? Not that we must run away from our houses, but we at least need to know, right? That's a place we invest so much of ourselves in. So what is this construct called the house? What is it? I go and I work somewhere and I earn from that place. What is this thing called livelihood? What am I doing with all these hours I spend there? So that's the first thing. Firstly, there has to be a very honest, a very ruthless observation of who I am and what I am doing and how I am living. And once that is there, then light starts glimmering on its own. You come to see how much of it needs to be built upon, how much of it needs to be just put aside, and there is a series of mini epiphanic explosions. You keep realizing a thing every hour or so, or every second day or so. There's something that is there, I never noticed it. We don't even look at our faces properly, do we? I mean, we are so busy, running this treadmill of life, we hardly have any time to pause and ponder. So that's the first thing that's needed. So I'm sorry I won't be able to give any quick takeaways for people to drive home or carry home. I'll firstly ask them what this thing called home is.
Which is, I am sure, I never thought about it.
The saints have kept asking, where is your real home? Where is your real home? What are you doing here? Is this really your home? So how do I give them something to carry home when the word home itself stands very nebulously defined?
Yeah, I'm sure like me, a lot of us will think about it today. And you've also mentioned, like we always hear in scriptures, our dharma is to liberate, to find moksha. So this is my personal view and my personal limitation, that liberation is not perceivable with whatever we are. So even if we've only heard from sages or heard in scriptures or read somewhere. So something which is not perceivable. So how do we go towards it? That is our end purpose.
Again, you have returned to the the how-to part. You see, liberation is not a point to go to. If I'm in bondage right now, if I go to some point, I'll be going to that point with all my bondages. So most people who claim to be liberated are actually liberated beings, so-called liberated beings, with all their bondages. And that's the point. You don't have to focus on liberation, you must focus on your slavery. Because that's one's immediate reality. There are 1,000 things that encircle us, circumscribe us, limit us, prevent us from flying free, from expressing who we truly are. We have to talk about all those things. Liberation as a word, as a concept, is just a utopia. It drugs us. It helps keep our servility in continuation. So I can perfectly entertain myself. Oh, liberation, I'm coming towards you. See, I meditate. See, I do this. I perform that trick, spiritual trick. I sing those kinds of songs, and I visit those particular shrines or pilgrimages, and I do all these things. And even as I am doing all these daily rituals, I am handcuffed. Prostrating before the deity, I am handcuffed. Meditating, I am handcuffed. And one thing I don't want to talk about is the handcuff. Because to that handcuff is linked my identity.
And it's very painful.
It's very painful, and I'm attached to it.
Indeed.
So I don't want to look at my real problem. I just want to keep talking of a utopian solution, which doesn't make sense. And there is just too little emphasis on looking at one's life and firstly honestly acknowledging where the bondages are, where we really are in shackles. We don't want to look there. It's as if the bulk of humanity has agreed to conspire against itself.
Unknowingly, I think. Unknowingly?
I suspect quite knowingly. And it's a mutual thing, you know. I won't call your bondages out, and you repeat or return the favor. And if I do honestly point out at something, then I'll be called insensitive and crude and out of place and the odd one out and all those things. So to belong to your flock, to your family, to your workplace, to your society,
or even to the ideology,
or to your ideology,
all of us are connected to it.
You have to necessarily remain blind to something. So it just can't be ignorance. I see a lot of deliberate connivance in this, and it's costing us very, very dearly.